Ex-wife has mental breakdown after divorce and came crawling back. Hey, true story. My name's Nick. I've been watching your channel for a while, and I think it's time I finally tell my story. It's not something I ever thought I'd be writing out for thousands of strangers to hear, but maybe someone will hear this and avoid making the same mistake I did, trusting the wrong person with my heart, my time, and nearly my livelihood. Before I get into it, I should probably tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 42 now, but back when this story started, I was 35, running a growing IT tech business with my best friend and business partner. I've always been career focused, almost to the point where people used to tell me I needed to loosen up and have more fun. My idea of fun was closing a big contract, landing a new client, or finally solving a complex coding issue after 2 days of staring at the screen. I wasn't really chasing women, not because I wasn't interested, but because I'd already watched a couple of my close friends get taken to the cleaners in divorce court. I knew marriage wasn't something you walk into blindly. But like every story, mine started when I met a woman who, for a while, convinced me she was different. Let's go to the beginning. I met Lena, not her real name, at a friend's charity event. One of my college buddies had invited me to this fundraiser his company was hosting. Fancy wine, art auction, the whole thing. I wasn't exactly in the mood to mingle, but I showed up anyway. Lena was working at the check-in table, handing people their bidder cards and smiling like she'd known everyone for years. I'll admit it, I was struck by her looks right away. She had that girl next door kind of beauty. Nothing over the top, just natural, soft-spoken and kind. We chatted briefly when I signed in, and later that night, she came over and introduced herself again. She told me she was there volunteering, that she believed in giving back to the community. We ended up talking the whole night. She laughed at my dry humor, asked questions about my work without glazing over, and made it seem like she genuinely cared about the answers. By the end of the night, I had her number, and she had my curiosity. The relationship. Things moved pretty quickly from there. We went on dates, met each other's friends, and within the first few months, I was seeing her almost every day. She was warm, affectionate, and she made me feel like I could finally relax. Everyone around me thought she was sweet, wholesome, and a good one. But there was one person who didn't get caught up in the charm. My business partner, Dave. Dave's been like a brother to me for over 15 years. He's the kind of guy who can read people fast. He pulled me aside about 6 months into my relationship with Lena and said, "Nick, she's nice, but you better protect yourself. You've worked too hard to risk it all on someone you don't truly know yet." At the time, I brushed it off. But when things started to get serious and marriage became a topic, I remembered his words. The prenup. When I proposed, I told Lena up front that a prenup was non-negotiable. I laid it all out. My business assets, my real estate investments, my savings. I told her that everything I'd built before her would remain mine if the marriage didn't work out. At first, she acted offended. She gave me that hurt look and said, "Do you not trust me?" I told her it wasn't about trust. It was about protecting the work I'd done long before she entered my life. My parents, my lawyer, and especially Dave were all adamant about it. Eventually, she agreed, saying she understood and didn't care about my money. She signed the prenup without much more protest. Looking back, I think she saw it as a gamble, that she'd just have to stay married to me to enjoy the lifestyle. The marriage. We got married in the fall of 2018. It was a small ceremony, just close family and friends. For the first year, things were fine. We traveled, we hosted dinner parties, and we genuinely enjoyed each other's company. About a year in, we found out Lena couldn't have children. It was a hard blow for both of us, but I made peace with it. I told her I loved her regardless. She cried and said she felt like she'd failed me, but I assured her it wasn't an issue. We could live a full life together without kids. In hindsight, I think this news hit her harder than I realized. She seemed to start pulling away emotionally. She got restless, distracted. She started spending more time on her phone. The cheating. Fast forward to the summer of 2021. I was working late one night when my phone buzzed. A notification from our shared iCloud account. Lena had uploaded a bunch of photos and screenshots by accident. Most of it was random, but then I saw messages. Flirty messages. Explicit ones. The guy's name was Chris. They'd met on a dating app, and from what I could gather, they'd been talking for at least 2 months. She was telling him things she hadn't told me in years. How excited she was to see him. How she felt alive again. How she wanted to escape her boring life. I sat there in my office reading every disgusting word. My heart was pounding, my ears were ringing, but I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to be smart about it. The divorce. The next day, I met with my lawyer. I explained the prenup, showed him the messages, and told him I wanted out. Clean, fast, and final. He said with the prenup in place, it would be straightforward. We filed, and within a week, Lena was served at home. I made sure I wasn't there when it happened. According to the process server, she cried, asked if she could talk to me, and said it was all a misunderstanding. When I finally did talk to her, she begged. She pleaded. She said she'd made a mistake, that she didn't want to lose me, and that she couldn't survive without the life we had. That last part told me everything. She wasn't fighting for me. She was fighting for the comfort my money provided. I didn't budge. The prenup meant she left with only what she brought into the marriage, which wasn't much. Aftermath and her mental breakdown. The divorce was final by the end of 2021. Since then, I've heard from mutual friends and even her own sister that she's been spiraling. She tried dating a few other men, but nothing lasted. She's had several emotional breakdowns, crying in public, locking herself in her apartment for days, losing weight. A few months ago, she actually showed up at my office building. She looked unrecognizable, pale, exhausted, shaking. She asked if we could start over. I told her that chapter was closed forever. She started crying right there in the lobby, saying I destroyed her life. I reminded her that she made her own decisions. I walked away. These days, I'm focused on my business and my own well-being. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that love can blind you to the red flags, and that prenups aren't unromantic, they're protection. She thought she had a forever seat at my table. She gambled and lost. Thanks for reading, Nick. How I Built My IT Tech Company and Advice for Young People. Hey, true story, it's Nick again. When I sent you my first email, I told you about my marriage, the prenup, the cheating, and the divorce. But I realized something afterward. The only reason I walked away from that marriage without financial devastation was because of the company I built from scratch. That company wasn't just my livelihood. It was my blood, sweat, and years of work. It's the reason I didn't have to cling to someone out of fear of losing stability. It's the reason I could enforce the prenup without hesitation. And it's the reason I'm sitting here, comfortable, free, and able to write this follow-up without wondering how I'll pay next month's bills. I want to use this update to share my story of how I started my IT tech business. From being a kid obsessed with taking apart computers to the moment I signed my first big contract to where the company stands now. Maybe someone out there, a younger guy or girl listening to this channel, needs to hear that you can build something for yourself, that you don't need to be born rich or have every step mapped out to create a life where you can stand on your own 2 feet. So here's how it happened. Childhood, the kid who took everything apart. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Ohio. My dad worked in manufacturing. My mom was a teacher. They weren't poor, but they weren't rolling in money either. If something broke in the house, my dad fixed it himself, whether that meant the sink, the lawnmower, or the old IBM desktop in our living room. That desktop, man, I remember it vividly. It was this beige, blocky thing that looked like it weighed more than I did at 10 years old. Windows 95, a dial-up modem that screeched every time you tried to connect. I was fascinated by it, not just with using it. I wanted to know how it worked. I remember once when I was 11, my dad came home to find the computer completely disassembled on the living room floor. I had no real plan to put it back together. I just wanted to see the guts of it. Instead of yelling at me, he sat down and helped me put it back together. I think that's the day my brain decided, this is what I want to do. High school, the first hustle. By high school, I wasn't just the computer guy for my family. I started fixing computers for neighbors, teachers, and classmates. Virus removal, upgrades, installing new RAM. If you had a problem, I'd solve it for $20 and a can of soda. It wasn't about the money yet. It was the thrill of being able to solve a problem that other people found intimidating. That's an important lesson I didn't understand until later. If you can solve problems that make other people's eyes glaze over, you'll never be out of work. College, not the straight path. After high school, I got into a decent state college. I went in for computer science, but here's where I'll be honest. I wasn't a straight A prodigy. I struggled my first year because I treated college like high school. Do the bare minimum. You'll pass. Except in college, that's not how it works. I nearly failed my freshman year. The turning point came when I had to take a summer job fixing network systems at a small local business. The owner, a guy named Carl, was in his 50s and had been running his own IT service company since before I was born. He told me something I never forgot. Kid, school's important, but if you really want to make it in tech, you've got to get your hands dirty. Real problems, real clients. That stuck. I went back to college in the fall with a different mindset. I started building small websites for local businesses in my spare time, setting up servers for people and working part-time for Carl, post-college. The corporate years. After graduating, I landed my first real job at a big IT services firm in Cleveland. On paper, it was great. Benefits, salary, an office badge with my picture on it. In reality, I felt like a cog in a massive, rusty machine. Every day I was fixing the same problems, attending pointless meetings, and having to get approval for everything. I worked there for 5 years, and while I learned a lot, I knew deep down I didn't want to spend my life climbing a corporate ladder just to maybe get a corner office one day. The final straw came when I pitched an idea to streamline one of our outdated systems. It could have saved the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. My manager smiled, patted me on the shoulder, and told me to stick to the assigned work. I went home that night and started sketching out a plan. Not just a someday plan, a real business plan. Starting the company, The Leap. In 2012, I quit my corporate job. My family thought I was insane. My dad said, "Son, you've got a stable paycheck and health insurance. Why throw that away?" I threw it away because I didn't want stability. I wanted freedom. I partnered with my best friend, Dave, who was also in the tech industry. We pooled our savings, about $20,000 total, and started our own IT solutions company out of my apartment. We called it Clear Path Technologies. The first year was brutal. We were working 14-hour days, cold calling potential clients, doing everything ourselves. Sales, tech support, billing. There were months where I didn't know if we'd make rent. But every time we landed a client, no matter how small, it was like fuel in the tank. The breakthrough contract. Our big break came when a mid-sized law firm in downtown Cleveland needed a complete overhaul of their network and data security. Their old system had been hacked twice in 1 year, and they were desperate. We pitched them, and they were skeptical. 2 guys working out of an apartment, no fancy office, no long client list. but I think our passion won them over. That contract was worth $80,000. It changed everything. We moved into a small office, hired our first 2 employees, and started building a reputation. Growth and lessons. Over the next 5 years, we grew from 2 guys in an apartment to a company with 25 employees, serving clients all over the Midwest. Here are the biggest lessons I learned. Never rely on one client. Diversify early. Protect your intellectual property. Contracts are your friend. Build a network of people you trust. One good business partner is worth more than 10 flaky ones. Keep learning. Tech moves fast. If you're not evolving, you're dying. Why this matters for young people. To any young person listening, build something for yourself. It doesn't have to be a tech company. It could be a landscaping business, an Etsy store, a YouTube channel, whatever. But build something that's yours. Because when life hits you, and it will, having your own foundation means no one can take away your stability. When my marriage ended, I wasn't scared about how I'd survive. I already had the skills, the income, and the mindset to move forward. That's what I want for you. Start now. Learn a skill people need. Be the person who can solve the problems no one else wants to touch, and protect what you build, legally, financially, emotionally.